Everybody's left me. Good morning. Good to see everybody here this morning. I'm not sure what curriculum that we're going to follow. I need to find out what that's going to be, and then I need to get the books that will be needed for our class. But it's been such a long time since we had a class using the Sound Doctrine book, and there's a few mistakes that were found in that book, and I just rather steer away from that, and so we're going to try to find something different. But in the meantime, this morning, we're going to have one class, and we're going to talk about what the devotion that I gave on Wednesday night, and let some of you voice your concerns or your thoughts in a biblical way. Of course, we want to do it. We want to keep it in the biblical sense, dealing with racism and the church. And there are probably some things that I said on Wednesday night that, and I know there was misunderstood, and probably that's my fault. And so I'm going to go ahead and address one of those right now. Do I believe that everybody in the church is racist? No, I do not. I don't believe that at all. In fact, if you're a member of the church, it would be kind of hard for you to be racist, being the fact that we don't think that we're superior over to anybody. That we're all equal, and in God's eyes. Now, out in the world, it's a different thing. And do we have racism in the church? Yeah, we do. We do. There are people that have a problem. And so, but I didn't mean to say that everybody in the church is racist. I did not mean to come across like that. So I want to make sure that that's known. Especially young people today. Racism is taught. If you had two little children here, they would love each other no matter what the circumstances are, or what color they are, or where they're from, or anything else. They don't see it. It's not in their eyes, but it's learned. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So it's something that's taught, and do I believe in systemic racism? I imagine that some of our laws were. Yes, it is, but it's also, especially back in our history, it may have been some laws that were made that were racist, like our Constitution was. A black man vote only counted 3/5 of a white man's vote, and was that racism? I would say that it was. Have we overcome that? Yes, we have. And so, but let's talk about and keep this on the church. And there are many examples in the Bible that deals with racism, because Jews and Gentiles, the Jewish people, believed that they were superior over everybody because of who they were. And that's the definition of racism. Racism is the belief that a particular race is superior or inferior to another, that a person's social and moral traits are predetermined by his or her inborn biological characteristics. And so, that's what racism is. That's the definition of racism. Now, there's a couple other words that comes into play with racism that are ugly word. Racism is an ugly word, but bigotry is even uglier, I think, than that. And but we have to deal with being a bigot. And so I looked up the definition to a bigot, and it is the definition of bigotry is prejudice and the state of being intolerant. An example of bigotry is disliking people because of their culture. We don't like their culture. We don't like the differences, and so we just kind of shy away from that group of people. And that's bigotry, because we all, and it's a scary thing, I guess, differences between people and cultures and so forth. And I think that may be one of the problems that we need to overcome. It's not, I made the statements, a black church and a white church, that ought not to be. But if you think about it, is that a sin if you had an all-black church or all-white church? No. Why do we have black churches and white churches? Cultural differences. The black people might want to be together. The white people might want to be together. Do we have black and white people in the same congregation? Yes. There's no doubt that we do. But I think where we're missing the boat is the fellowshipping with one another. We need to have more opportunities to fellowship with our brethren, with our different races of brethren, like the black and the whites and the Hispanics and so forth and so on. Yes, their culture is different. Yes, they have their own congregation. Why can't we come together and host a time when it's not on a Wednesday night, it's not on Sunday morning or Sunday evening, but like on a Thursday or a Tuesday, and get together and sing and study God's Word and get to know one another. I think that makes sense. I think that we need to bridge the gap that may be between us culturally. And because we know that if we're all in the church, that we're all one. I mean, that's plainly stated in Galatians 3:27-28, is it not? That we're all one? It doesn't say anything about color. It says neither Jew nor Gentile, bond or free, male or female, we are all one in Christ Jesus.
How religious groups where Stephen goes, they got about a 50-50 ratio. When they have a fellowship, it's different.
Just, you have to remember that we were all made from the image of God. Genesis 1:26 says, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his own image. The image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. There is no mention of races there, right? They were the first two people on this earth. We all came from the lineage of Adam and Eve. So, the only difference between us and another group of people would be our cultural differences. When's that? Well, those are good questions. It didn't have to happen. You can be the same color and have cultural differences and be and have prejudice or bigotry or racism over it. Yeah. I don't think that has anything to really do with it. We've made it a racist thing as far as the color of our skin. When there was slavery, but we're not going to get into that. The black people have a legitimate gripe if you were living back in the 1800s. Let's just look at something here real quick. God, he doesn't have prejudice against anybody. Deuteronomy 10:7. You turn with me there. Deuteronomy 10:7. Says, "For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, a great God, a mighty and a terrible, which regardeth not persons, nor taketh reward. He does execute judgment of the fatherless and widows, and loveth the stranger, in giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt." Deuteronomy 10:7. 17. Typographical. It could have been, my old age and stuff. Is that Deuteronomy 17? Oh, 10, 17, 18, 19. I'm sorry. 10, 17, 18, 19. That's correct. Sorry about that. So we're to love the stranger. We're to love everybody as God loves us.
Because if you talk in fellowship with them, they're not a stranger anymore.
Well, they're not. I would agree with that to some extent. And in Acts 10:34, Peter opened his mouth and said, "Of a truth I perceive that God is no respecter of persons. But in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him." So, there's no respecter of persons with God. And his son is who? Who's his son? His son is God. We're to follow the best that we can, following the footsteps of Jesus. Pick up our cross daily and walk with him. And he doesn't have any respect of persons or prejudice against anyone. And so we shouldn't either. We shouldn't either. And a lot of people, and see, this is where I want to get your opinion, what you think.
Well, I was raised out in the country where there's nobody else, just us.
Jesse?
Go back and think about Christianity as a taught religion. We have to teach people about Christ and God, but they have to know what about this. Even when we teach it, sometimes we have things happen in the church that should not happen in the church. But if you don't teach the right thing, what are you going to have?
You're going to have ignorance, number one, and you're going to have the problem.
When you go back and look at what God dealt with, he found, right before he destroyed the whole earth, there was sin in it. He didn't like what the people were doing. He destroyed everything. Start over.
Yeah. So, do y'all think we have a problem?
We know we do.
In the church. Yeah. Everybody has their own preference. Yeah. Let me ask you a question along that line. Do you think that the leadership is failing the congregation by not addressing those issues in the congregation?
Spoke to her and told her she was disrupting the preaching service, what she was doing. And she made some changes this way. Somebody had to talk to her. We have in Columbus, Georgia, over there, you have probably one of the largest black congregations anywhere around for Cedar Road. It's probably about 300 or 400 in that congregation.
Beth, I wished I did have a house microphone, but I don't right now, but maybe we'll get one soon. Talking to your daughter. She was talking to me, so I was talking to her. Right. Now, how many years ago was that? Yeah. Right. Okay. So see, and that's where my mindset was on Wednesday night. When I started making blanket statements, probably, was that of course, y'all were a lot older than I am, but but when I was growing up, I hate to say this, but my mama and my daddy both were racist to a certain extent, and so I grew up in that as a little child, not knowing anything, and I'm taught that daily. Then it gets permeated in your mind, that mindset of, we're better than another person. And it wasn't until really when I went to the Marine Corps. And when I was in the Marine Corps, I found out, hey, there's no such thing as a black and white person, because we're all green, and we all share a sweat with each other, and we work together with each other, and we're under the same rule. My black brother and I'm standing side by side, and we got a drill instructor that's over both of us. We're in the same boat. We're in the same ditch. And so there is no difference between me and him, because we're the same. We're at the same level. Well, that's true. In church, it's a little different, though, I would say. We're not doing it because we're in the same boat. I think we do it because we love our brothers and sisters, no matter who you are.
We're taught to love God. We don't love God, we can't love one another.
Right. Yeah, it wasn't until later, that when of course, I've never had a problem. I think Phyllis and I was talking about it, and I think everybody knows this very well, that you either repeat and do the same thing your parents do, you learn from them not do them, if it's wrong. And I remember, as a little child, I wasn't racist, because our housekeeper, May, and I remember her very well, and I loved her more than anything in the world. And when she was no longer employed with us, it just broke our little hearts. But and she was with us a long time. I used to. Somebody told me, my sister told me, that she used to, put me on her hip when she's, ironing clothes or whatever, and that's where I stayed. Was right with her. And children don't see that, but as you grow older, you get in this world, you're going to see the racism, and you're going to take on those traits. And then at some point in your life, you got to say, hey, this is wrong. We're not better than anybody else. And then you start, you start teaching yourself, I guess, or learning that's not the way you treat people. And especially once you get into the church, you know that that's not true. The Bible says so. The Bible says that we're all equal with one another. And so you learn from that. But I'll state the problem. The problem, I don't think is a overall racism in the church, but the fact that we don't strive to fellowship with our brothers and sisters of different races like we should. We should all come together and be able to know what each other's thinking is.
I can remember back when I was a young fellow, I was raised on a farm. We had people like that in the work with us. And I played field all the time. Pretty damn thing in my life. Never going on. Mother tried to get those people like they didn't sit down and eat lunch with us. No, we'll wait till you're through and then we'll leave. I guess they were way to do it.
She's teaching her kids that by saying that.
And, you know, you have so many things that we're not coming to church. And that's what we got to deal with. We got to deal with people who are in the church and try to teach them this. Then try to teach those on the outside what we need to do, how we need to conduct ourselves.
Tricia. Yeah. And I appreciate that so much. I tell you, because that's what we're trying to do, is for everybody to understand that, we may not be, we become part of the problem when we don't do something about it.
It's hard to unteach somebody something they've been doing all their life.
Well, I understand that. I understand it's hard to teach somebody differently if they've been taught it all their lives, but it can be done. You can teach an old person new tricks. I mean, my wife's done. Look at me. I mean, but in order to fix a problem, in order for there to be a solution to a problem, we have to admit that there's a problem. And if we can do that, then that's a step forward in the right direction. And then we have to do something more than that, though. We can't just talk about it and get through today, and then nobody brings it up again. That happens a lot. Where we talk about the problem. We might even come up with some solutions to the problem, but then we never act upon those suggestions, and we don't, or we just let it lie again, and then later on we pick it up again when there's controversy. know, I think that another thing, we can fellowship with our black brethren. We can eat with them and talk with each other but are we resolving any issues that may be there? If we're not bringing up, we're not specifically talking about problems that they may be having or problems that the church may be having. Let me just give you an example. You take a relationship between a man and a woman that is that's a mixed couple. Maybe a black woman with a white husband, or just the opposite. Where do they stand in the church? I've heard from individual people in the church that if you're a preacher and you have a black wife, a mixed family, children, it's harder for you to get a job than if you were straight. So what's the deal with that? Is that not some type of prejudice or bigotry or something of that nature? And if that goes on, and it should not go on, that's the kind of, and so we're not talking about that though. We haven't brought that up in a setting with mixed, people in it, and the way the people are being treated out in the world. We had a senator or congressman that's been stopped by the police just so many times. I can't remember the exact total figures. How many? 7 times. And here he is, the senator, just because of his color. These are the things that go on in the world. That shouldn't happen in the church, of course. But we have, we have these issues that we're not talking about. And those are the things that we need to talk about so that we can be more united one with another and recognize the burdens that our brothers and sisters are having, and then teach on those and preach on them, and as a congregation, talk about them to each other and have understanding with one another and show that we have love for one another and that we're there for them. Yes, sir. If you look at Ephesians 4:31, it says, "Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice, and be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake has forgiven you." So we're to love one another and be understanding with one another. Tricia. Right.
It can be black or white.
Over in River Springs, they have black preachers over in white. That makes it worse.
That's right. That's good. But in your hearts. Yes. And that's the reason why we need to study more about these issues and be taught more about these issues and not just let them lie. You know, would you feel the same way if the white brethren or the women there at the congregation packed their plates and stuff up at the end of the and took them home? Yeah. The yeah. But my point is this though. See, when we have an issue with black people doing it versus white people, then that's where we've got a problem that we need to work on. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Right.
It's probably the point that someone does not bring food in, then they pack them out and all, put it all in the take.
Right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, if you feel the same way about it, whether it be white or black, then you don't have an issue. If you feel differently, if it's because it's a black person doing it versus a white person doing it, then you got an issue. Yeah, exactly. We all do. Yes, sir.
Not only do we need to teach in our white congregation, black need to teach in the black congregations as well.
Yes. And I've had these, I've listened to some discussions. I know how I feel about this. Can a black person be racist?
Yes.
Absolutely. I agree that wholeheartedly. Some people don't believe that. I've heard it. I've seen it in writing, Yes, sir.
When being a business postmaster, when I went to that postmaster, I saw white relationship had prejudice against black. Well, then I saw black prejudice against white.
Yeah.
Just completely changed.
But
It's,
in a big town like Montgomery or Birmingham, it's just out in the open ransom.
Yeah.
And then there is prejudiced people, and then there are ghetto people.
Well,
Blacks.
yeah,
And the ghetto, they think that you move, like you move out of a community, they think you're getting away from the blacks, what you're doing, but actually what you're doing is getting away from the ghetto.
all right, saved by the bell. So
They
we're
got
going
that.
we're going to stop at that right there. And I appreciate y'all being candid with me on these issues. And it's something that, there's no way you can get all the discussion that needs to be done or anything in one class or one devotion or one sermon. We really do need to work on these problems. And I hope that it doesn't stop here. I hope that we do something. I know that the ladies, from what I understand, the ladies are trying to get up maybe to have some meetings with the other congregations. I think that would be a good thing, a good start. But I think the men need to do something as well. We need to have some time together with each other and be candid with each other and talk to each other. And
Getting honest people, then it'll make a difference.
let me just say this, and then I'll go away. If you really, of course, you've missed it. Of course, you could go back and look at it. But Digital Bible Study has on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, they've been having a discussion about this very issue. And it's Eric Owen, it's Melvin Ote, Jonathan Jenkins, and Wayne. Yes, they're having a discussion live, and of course, I don't know what happened this past Thursday. It wasn't a very good session, a very good time, but the other 2 times were excellent, and I imagine that they will continue this next Thursday night. I think that you need to watch it and see what they're saying. And I wish Thomas Tarpley was here because, him and his wife have been going to the congregation over there in Marion for years now. And, of course, now they're going to Selma, aren't they? Yeah. But that's an all-black congregation. They're the only white people in there. So you know what? They feel probably the same way as a black couple that comes in here to an all-white church. And so we have to think about those things. Thank you very much.